Hey everyone, Wylock here, welcome back. The teleportarium I did a few episodes ago was a huge hit. A bunch of you asked me to do a Hyperspace Oubliette for the Necrons, so I did. For those unfamiliar with what this is all about, this is a little diorama to put models on in reserve in Warhammer 40k. Some units are able to come in later in the game, and the rule is written in a flavorful way. So here's the data sheet for the Deathmarks unit, and you can see they have the special rule Hunters from Hyperspace. During deployment, you can set up this unit in a Hyperspace Oubliette instead of placing it on the battlefield. At the end of any of your movement phases, the Deathmarks can slip back into reality. Set them up anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from enemy models. Most of that is unnecessary, it's just flavor fluff. The mechanical part of the rule just says to set them up later more than 9 inches away from enemy models. But wouldn't it be cool if you actually had a Hyperspace Oubliette on the table next to the game that your models are set up on, just like the rule says? Yeah, I think so. So let's go build one. The main ingredient I used is, as always, chipboard. This is Graphics Medium chipboard. It's the brown slab you'll find at the back of a legal pad, but you can buy it in bulk. There's a link in the video description below. So I set up 5 Deathmarks and found that a shelf size of about 10 by 6.5 centimeters would fit them comfortably. I cut 4 such rectangles. 2 will be needed for each shelf. This is a Christmas light, specifically the LED kind. With a twist, the bulb part comes off pretty easily, and then by bending the leads out, it can be liberated from the chassis. I did a quick test with a standard 3-volt coin battery, and this will work. On one of those rectangles, I measured down the center lengthwise, and on that line marked inwards by 25 millimeters. Punched holes through at those points, inserted the LEDs, bent the leads flat, and secured them in place with hot glue on the other side. Then I soldered on lead wires to the leads and hot glued them down as well. In the open areas, I hot glued 2 slabs of chipboard like this, and then hot glued the other large rectangle on them to create a sandwich that hides the wires. The back of the Oubliette is double corrugated cardboard, but single corrugated would work, or even foam board. Here's a diagram of its dimensions. I spotted where the wires would go through, punched holes, and then fed all 4 wires through. The ledge gets attached with a healthy bead of hot glue. Notice that there's an empty channel in the back due to that chipboard sandwich. This is by design. It means the hot glue will seep in, have lots of surface area to stick to, and won't squish out because it has some place to go. Just be sure and hold still for a solid 3 minutes to be totally sure that it hardens while perpendicular. The top was done in the same way, except it's obviously not 10 centimeters wide, and also you need to add a few millimeters to the depth, depending on the thickness of your backing. In my case, with the double corrugated cardboard, it was 7 millimeters. Also, I measured out a 30 millimeter square in the center and cut it out. Punched holes and prepared LEDs just as before, and then I actually base coated with black acrylic craft paint right now around the LEDs, the exposed edges, and both sides of the slab. Then I had these fluorescent green plastic rods left over from when I did a big Necron eBay rescue. The brand is Plastruct. I chopped 5 small lengths and hot glued them over the square, like this. Then completed the sandwich exactly as before, again, pre-base coating with black. This pre-base coating is so that we don't have to take wet black paint anywhere near those rods. So much easier. This was attached to the top of the backing, but like against its edge instead of on top of it, if that makes sense. You can see where I'm putting the hot glue. This is why earlier I said to add a few millimeters to the depth. Then I just started measuring out rectangles of chipboard to fill out the sides of the structure. And those are attached with hot glue to the main body. T-lights are a great cheap source for both miniature switches and 3-volt coin batteries. Just tear them apart and you get both pieces more cheaply than you would ordering from DigiKey or Mouser. Plus, save the flickering LED, used in a future project. So just like in the Teleportarium episode, I decided to try a 6-volt battery by hot gluing 2 batteries together in series, and the result is a much stronger, brighter color without burning out the LEDs, so no resistor needed due to the inherent resistance of the batteries. Good to go. I got the whole circuit soldered together on the back, including the battery and switch, making sure to leave a large open area in the middle, and making sure that nothing was too close to an edge such that you might see it if you're looking at this thing from the side. A quick test, looking good. For a refresher on custom lighting, circuit design, and soldering, check out episode 56. Now on the sides of the Oubliette, those edges are flimsy where they meet, so I took some food box cardstock, any cardstock would work here, I pre-scored a 1/2-inch strip down the middle, folded it, and hot glued it on to stabilize those edges and really make this thing crazy strong. Not really sure of where to go next, I base coated the entire inside with black. This is cross-stitching mesh, sometimes referred to as granny grating, available at literally any crafting store that sells sewing supplies. It's plastic, so it needs a flat primer coat first, like Krylon or Rust-Oleum. And then I overbrushed it with a metallic silver, cut a rectangle to size, and attached it to the shelves using super glue. Super glue is good here for that plastic and doesn't have blobs showing like hot glue would. That done, I cut some chipboard strips and hot glued them on to cover up the exposed front edges, making sure that the two for the shelves are flush with the grating. This is easy to do because there's several seconds of working time with hot glue, and you can feel with the pads of your fingers when the grating and the edge of the chipboard are nice and flush. Then I set about base coating the rest of it in plain black, and that takes me about 25 seconds, so why don't we take that time to go ahead and do all of the annoying YouTuber calls to action. There are multiple ways to support the channel if you find the content helpful. Number 1, like, subscribe, reminder bell. Number 2, Patreon, Wylock's Armory. Number 3, Amazon affiliate links. Just use the links in the video description below when you buy stuff. Totally transparent to you. The only difference is I get a small commission. Number 4, Heroes Horde. For you 3D printers out there, tons of selection, including all True Tiles lines. And number 5, my modules on the DM's Guild, written for D&D 5th edition. They're pretty good. Not great, but good. So I've had this stencil for a couple years. I saw it in the store, figured it would come in handy someday, and now it did. I used it to airbrush on a few white blooms. Then I airbrushed a thin layer over those blooms with a plain green. Not too much, just enough to tint the white to green and make it look like it's glowing. Then with a lime green color, I airbrushed a smaller area inside the green. And lastly, with yellow, airbrushed a very small area in the middle. After that, the acrylic black base coat was kind of dull, so I went to a good model grade paint. This is Army Painter Matte Black, and just went around and touched up all the black areas to create an even more bold contrast with the green. The front facades I simply painted with gunmetal. Then I got out my leftover Necron water slide transfers and just went to town with them on those silver facades. Now here you see it's actually attached to my first attempt at a base. The intent was that it looked like it was in a hyperspace tunnel or something, but it just didn't work. The colors are off, or it's not hovering, I don't know, but I tore it off and started over on the base. I took 3 CDs and made a sandwich out of them, again using chipboard as spacers. Then traced this onto some food box cardstock, cut that out and glued it on. For the post, to which I would attach the main body, I cut a 1.5-inch wide strip of chipboard, along with some 1/2-inch strips, and hot glued those on perpendicularly to create 2 axes of rigidity. That got hot glued to the base, using a good amount of pressure to bend it to the slight curve of the CD. And on the back of the Oubliette, I hot glued some slabs of cardboard to that middle open area to create an offset. Eventually that's what gets hot glued to the post. But first, paint. I base coated with black, and then with a toothbrush and some slightly watered down white paint, I flicked a star field into existence. From there it was back to the same green, lime green, and yellow in the airbrush to put down some nebulas. It's a good idea to have some blotches overlapping and others on their own. And then a second star field flick from the toothbrush over top. Then I hot glued it to the post. These are the leftovers from a Necron ghost arc because I built a Doomsday arc, so I assembled the 5 warriors and painted them up, just their fronts, then hot glued kebab skewers to their spines, painted that post black, cut it to length, and hot glued it in the bottom compartment. 5 of them fit in there perfectly. At this point, those corner patches are really ugly, and the fibrous texture of that chipboard isn't helping things, so I'm going to do what I should have done before. I took food box cardstock and re-encased the entire outside with it. Lightly pre-scoring where the folds need to occur gave me a nice clean corner. I also made sure to leave the shiny product side out for a smoother finish at the end. From there I painted exactly as I described earlier, and I got this. Much better. Here's an example. This is not an actual game in play, I just threw down all my models in a scene, but you can see how off to the side of the table are the models that are in reserve for both armies. I remember a comment in response to the Teleportarium video that, oh, this will help me not forget to bring my reserves in. I've definitely done that in game, I'm sure we all have. And yeah, having this little diorama with lights on it and stuff on the side of the table, you're unlikely to overlook that. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, I did use the airbrush to lay down some green in all the corners on the inside. That really helped things start to glow when the LEDs are on. Just for posterity, because I went to the trouble of setting all this up, here's another glamour shot of the Teleportarium. Got a unit of Terminators ready to beam down and another unit to the right on deck. By the way, all the terrain you see on this table I've done in previous episodes, so you can check my backlog if you see anything that interests you. And this is on a Frontline gaming mat. Really happy with how this stencil performed for me. It's been sitting there for like 3 years. Finally got to use it, and I think I'll probably use this technique on my future Necron terrain, buildings and such. And just like last time, no doubt you're curious to see what it's like in the pitch dark, so I set up sort of a little area here on my desk at night, and here we go. A little grainy because this camera is really not meant for this, but nonetheless looks pretty sweet, pretty imposing. Those rods really like almost glow in real life. It's pretty cool. I had considered doing like a half pipe behind it and painting that like Hyperspace, like stars going past, but would have been too large, wanted to keep this simpler. Necron stuff is so hard to photograph, pictures and video. That jet black with high contrast neon over it. I just don't know what I'm doing. I know it's cliche, but trust me, it looks way better in real life. In case you're wondering, yes, I did have to Google what an oubliette was and how to pronounce it. It's a secret underground dungeon. If you like this particular project, here's 2 more you might want to check out. Also enjoy this community showcase. I'm Wylock, thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.